Okay, here we are for another Thursday morning Bible study. I have no recollection about what we finished. I could make my mind tell me we finished or didn't finish lots of different things last time. So who marked?
Shelley's got some stuff, I don't know if it's right, I think it's it. Okay. Matthew 22, March 12-13, and Luke 20.
Okay,
I don't know if it's right, that's what I wrote down.
22:11.
The wording, I guess, that got thrown out.
22:11.
Okay, good, because that's where I thought we were. Matthew chapter 22. Um, Actually, that parable starts in verse 1 of chapter 22.
So next week we're gonna talk about Texas.
All right, well, I probably didn't do a very good job on the wedding thing, so I want to back up a little bit and get a running start. So, but I did know that taxes were going to come up today. I just wasn't exactly sure how quickly. So, all right, in Matthew 22, starting in verse 1, it says, Jesus spoke to them again in parables, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like a king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his servants to those who had been invited to the banquet to tell them to come, but they refused to come. Then he sent some more servants and said, Tell those who have been invited that I've prepared my dinner. My oxen and fattened cattle have been butchered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet. But they paid no attention, and they went off, one to his field, another to his business. The rest seized his servants, mistreated them, and killed them. The king was enraged. He sent his army and destroyed those murderers and burned their city. Then he said to his servants, The wedding banquet is ready, but those I invited did not deserve to come. So go to the street corners and invite to the banquet anyone you find. So the servants went out into the streets and gathered all the people they could find, the bad as well as the good, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes. Yes, how'd you get in here without wedding clothes, friend? The man was speechless. Then the king told the attendants, Tie him hand and foot and throw him outside into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are invited, but few chosen. Okay, so this is in the last week of Jesus's life. It's somewhere in the vicinity of Tuesday or Wednesday. He has been in Jerusalem each day during the week since Sunday he's gone in. There have been encounters with crowds and Jewish leadership at the temple courts, and it seems like Jesus has mostly just hung out there in the temple grounds for most of the days that he's been there. He's been telling some parables, and we've just read another one that Jesus tells. It is similar to a parable that Jesus tells in Luke 14, um, but they're not exactly the same. There are some similarities, but there are enough differences to believe that Jesus is using a similar setup to teach different lessons. And we know teachers and speakers that do that. You know, they've got a really good story, and so they can use that to teach more than one lesson, more than one place. So um, so the short version, after we've read it out loud, is that in this parable, um, a king is throwing a wedding banquet for his son. During the time of Jesus, a wedding banquet wasn't just butter, cream, mints, and mixed nuts and cake after the wedding. This is a big deal that went on not just for hours, but for days. It was a huge, huge thing. This king has prepared a wedding banquet for his son's wedding, and people have been invited. And now, according to the story, it's time for the banquet. And so, everybody who's gotten the invitation, now's the time, y'all come. And those who got the invitations refused to show up. And when the king sends messengers to make sure that they understand that it really is time to come, the NIV says they mistreat. It's more than mistreat. They are abusing these messengers, um, beating them, torturing them, and even killing them. And so when the king gets word of this, he sends quick judgment and punishment to those ungrateful, unwilling guests. They have killed those who meant something to him, and so there will be punishment for that. And once those people are all gone and everything is destroyed, there's still a wedding banquet. So the invitation goes out to anybody everywhere. And it's ironic that Jesus points out specifically to the good and the bad. Just this is everybody is invited to come. Um, but there is still an expectation that people will prepare to come to the banquet. So at the end of this parable, when the king comes in and begins to greet all the guests, he knows the guy who's there not wearing the right clothes. You're supposed to prepare for the wedding, and he just came right out of the chicken barn right into the wedding feast. What are you doing in here dressed like that? It's a shame. I think of everything in movies and music because there's a Dolly Parton song going through my head right now. Why'd you come in here looking like that? Anyway, um, how did you get in here? And the guy's like, he has no words. And the master of the banquet says, get him out of here, throw him outside, out into the farthest reaches. He's not coming back in here. Sort of a hard parable because the master of the banquet kills those who refuse the invitation. But I would not. It might be really easy to do some major allegorizing. That this is this person and this happens and that's what this means, and the God is the master and Jesus is the son who's having his wedding banquet with the church, who is the time is right, and the messenger, the prophets who have come and whatever. And while there's probably some of that that's all right, trying to decode all of this, like so those who went about their business, or what was the other thing that they did? They went out to their field. Yeah, they're going out. Who is that? Are those Pharisees or the Sadducees? Like, okay, you're putting too fine a point on it. And the city is destroyed. Is he looking necessarily ahead to the destruction of Jerusalem? Well, maybe. He might be. He knows it's coming, and in something like 40 years. But really, the point of this parable is not to give some sort of a decoding of the future, which is what most people do with like the book of Revelation. But there's a bigger point to be made, which is what Jesus says at the end. Many are invited, but few are chosen. This invitation is going to go out to everybody, but not everybody is going to receive that invitation. Just because you have an invitation doesn't mean you're getting in. You've got to prepare. that's really, I think, the real heart of this lesson. Anybody can receive this invitation, but only those who respond to it are going to come in. Um, so essentially, come be a part of the kingdom. Here's your invitation. Everything is happening now. It's ready. So come on, let's be a part of it. I feel better about that now than I did last time. Any questions or comments about that?
Can I ask a question?
Always.
So I guess I'm one of those people that wanted to read into it, but my first thought was, it sounds like when Jesus came and he was targeting the Jews when he first started his ministry, that they refused him, most of them. And so then they went after the Gentiles, which is kind of what it sounds like to me.
I think that is an application that fits. That Jesus said that he came. We looked at that a few months back, at least a few months back. That I came for the children of Israel. Yeah, the message was for the Jews first, but many of the Jews have rejected the invitation. They've rejected the offer, and so now it's going to go to um, out to every fork in the road. They're going to stand at the corners and tell everybody that the wedding banquet is occurring, and didn't you want to come? To anybody who comes along the path, whether they're good or bad, Jew or Gentile, old, young, male, female, slave free, whatever. It's open to anybody. But I believe that is an accurate application of what Jesus is teaching here. But still, the underlying foundational lesson is you have to prepare if you're going to come be a part of this kingdom. You can't just get an invitation and assume you're fine. You actually have to respond to it and come in here dressed the right way.
Can I go down a rabbit hole there?
Cody wants to go down a rabbit hole, sure.
Verse 6, and the rest seized his slaves and mistreated them and killed them. Would that be the apostles? Could it?
It could, well, or anybody who probably, I would see it being more like John the Baptist
Right.
or any of the other prophets leading up to the point. But I would, if we're going to make a really tight application here, it's probably John. You had him arrested and killed, you framed him, you treated him badly. But the people of Israel have always rejected the messengers who have come with words from God, whether it was to the king or to the nation at large. They always treated the prophets really, really horribly. So
Nobody likes hearing the truth.
yeah, nobody does like to hear the truth. It's just fine that you believe it, but please keep it to yourself and don't interrupt my whatever. Yeah, that's typically how we are.
Makes sense.
Other weeping, gnashing of teeth references.
Weeping and gnashing of teeth. That is, we're tying him hand and foot and throwing him outside into weeping and gnashing of teeth. That is way outside the kingdom.
6 times in Matthew it mentioned.
Gnashing of teeth. There's great sorrow, pain, discomfort, fear, anger, anxiety, all kinds of things.
Kind of hellish.
Yeah. Being outside of the kingdom of God, not being, having been given the choice to accept this invitation to the kingdom and then rejecting it is the worst thing possible. You won't be a part of the kingdom and bound hand and foot. I mean, you're tied up. There's no way you're coming back. There's not a chance. This is the final assessment here. There's not a chance to go change your clothes, take a shower, and shave to come back to this wedding. No, you've had your chance, and that's it. So outer darkness, judgment of permanent separation from God. Yes.
So what is the proper wedding clothes we need to be wearing?
I would go with Jesus. That's the appropriate Sunday school answer for everything. How do we dress ourselves? There, in one of the commentaries, the commentator made a note that there is some evidence that the master of the banquet would provide clothing for the guests. That preaches really well that God makes available to everybody who wants to come into this kingdom. He gives them the right things to wear. You got to put it on. We are given the righteousness of Jesus to put on as our new clothes. God, when he looks at us, he doesn't see our sin and our stains and our disaster. Once we become a follower of Jesus, we put on this Jesus suit, and that's all that he can see is the righteousness of Jesus, and so we get to come in.
But he's not talking about our clothes.
He's not talking about it better be a three-piece suit or a lovely dress with the matching heels and a handbag. It's not what he's talking about. There is that we cannot clean ourselves up enough to be ready to go to this banquet. We have to be dressed appropriately, which is if we're going to come into the kingdom of God, we have to come through Jesus. He's the way, the truth, the life, and the suit of clothes.
So it doesn't just cover us up, it eradicates what's inside.
It transforms what's inside. Yeah.
See, that's a better.
All right. Ready to move on? Well, let's talk about some taxes. The next thing that shows up in the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, is a question about paying taxes to Caesar. The enemies of Jesus are trying to trap Jesus. I mean, this is high week, high Holy Week. Everybody is in Jerusalem. Thousands of extra people have come. Most of them have heard about Jesus, especially if they've come from up around Galilee. But he's been everywhere, so people have heard about him. And so this is an opportunity for the leadership to try to get rid of some of Jesus's celebrity. In Matthew chapter 22, verse 15, then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. They sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians. Teacher, they said, we know you are a man of integrity and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, you hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax. They brought him a denarius, and he asked them, whose image is this? And whose inscription? Caesar's, they replied. Then he said to them, so give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God's. When they heard this, they were amazed. So they left him and went away. Now, you can almost hear the slithery, slimy, smarmy yuck of the Pharisees. Oh, teacher, we know you're a man of integrity. I don't believe any of that for a minute. They are they are trying to find a way to destroy his credibility with the people. And so they think that they have got this figured out. Did we talk about the Herodians a week ago? The different groups? Okay. So the Herodians, they are Jews, and they are Jews who really kind of don't mind the setup. So Judea is a part of the Roman Empire. The emperor rules from Rome. He has all of these governors and puppet kings all over the place. But specifically in Judea, you've got the family of the Herods, starting with Herod the Great, back before the time of Jesus, the great big builder who built everything. I mean, all over the Middle East, you find his handiwork, whether it is expanding the temple court there in Jerusalem, or building his fortress out at Masada, or any of these other little fortresses and palaces all over Judea for himself and for his family. He just builds everything, even out on the coast into the Mediterranean Sea. He's a great builder. And he has children who are at his death are installed as sort of, they're like kings, but probably more like governors. They serve Rome. They have a certain amount of power. They are sort of Jewish a little bit. They have a similar heritage, and they've been around long enough that they know all the right things to say and do, even if they're not completely Jewish. They still allow that all of the Jewish traditions to go on. So there is this faction of people who are in favor of the Herods. They're okay with the way that it works. At least it's not Rome directly. There are these local familiar faces who are their kings. They don't love Rome as much as they do the idea that they have some local government and autonomy. So the plan is that they're going to use a political argument to try to catch Jesus up. They figure they've got him in an absolutely no-win situation here. So they come asking this question about paying the imperial tax. If you're part of the empire, you pay the imperial tax. And you don't use your temple money to do that. You use the imperial coins that are distributed. So they come with this question about paying taxes to Caesar. Jesus absolutely knows what's going on. He sees through the bluff. When Matthew writes about it, he describes their evil intent. He uses the word hypocrites. Mark talks about their hypocrisy, and Luke, in his account, talks about their duplicity, their fakingness. The Greek word for that is panorgia, which is craftiness or cunning. It's trickery. They think they're being really clever. They've got him on the ropes here. Um, the thing is, you can't fall into the trap when you're fully aware of the trap. So Jesus is aware, and he says that, well, their perspective is if Jesus tells them that they shouldn't pay taxes to Rome, then what are they going to do? He said that we shouldn't pay taxes to Rome. He's an insurrectionist. He's trying to start a rebellion. Arrest this man. But if he says that they should pay taxes to Rome, everybody, did you hear what he said? He's a Roman collaborator. He loves these people and he wants to support their work. Don't follow him. Don't listen to him. He's not a real Jew. So they think that they've got him stuck. But Jesus takes the no-win situation into a no-lose situation. He's not going to fall for this trick. And so he gives what's a very logical answer. Whose name is on it? Whose picture's on it? Well, it's Caesar. Okay. Then give Caesar what's his. Rats foiled again. And all three writers, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, all describe the response of the Pharisees and the Herodians with the same word. Same Greek word is thaumazo. It shows up a lot in the New Testament, especially in the Gospels dealing with Jesus. And thaumazo means to wonder at or to marvel at. Very often it is translated that someone was amazed. It can mean admire. And I suppose there's maybe a little room for that here. Like all these people who have come to trap Jesus, when they set the trap and they just wait, and he just walks right around. They're like, well, be darned. That turkey, that was good. That was really good. I think there's some room for some admiration, even though they're frustrated that he's done it. Because the answer is perfect. He answered it and dodged it all in the same moment. And so the Gospels say that they are speechless and they just leave. Jesus stays there with the people, and all the leaders go home muttering and fussing and, well, what are we going to do now?
Hope you kept her cool.
So that's one of the things that maybe we don't focus on too much about Jesus, is that, we always talk about how loving he is, how gracious and forgiving he is, but he's also really super smart guy. I mean, if we ever think that we are pulling the wool over his eyes, we're the ones who are foolish. He sees through all of the bluster and bravado. He sees beyond the mask. We're not hiding anything from him. We can hide stuff from our spouse, from our kids, from our parents, from our coworkers. We can buffalo the world, but we don't buffalo him. He has great insight. He's very wise, and he's going to deal with things in just the right way. The next thing that follows in all three Gospels, Matthew 22, verse 23, Mark 12, verse 18, and Luke chapter 20, verse 27, is a discussion that Jesus has now with the Sadducees. It is about resurrection and marriage. So let me read Luke's version there, Luke 20, verse 27. Some of the Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came to Jesus with a question. They said, "Teacher, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies and leaves a wife but no children, he must marry the widow and raise up offspring for his brother." Now, there's 7 brothers. The first one marries a woman, but dies childless. The second, and then the third married her. And in the same way, the seven died, leaving no children. Finally, the woman died too. Now then, at the resurrection, whose wife will she be, since the seven were married to her? Jesus replied, the people of this age marry and are given in marriage, but those who are considered worthy of taking part in the age to come and in the resurrection from the dead will neither marry nor be given in marriage, and they can no longer die, for they are like the angels. They are God's children, since they are children of the resurrection. But in the account of the burning bush, even Moses showed that the dead rise, for he calls the Lord the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living, for to him all are alive. Some of the teachers of the law responded, well said, teacher, and no one dared to ask him any more questions. So the Sadducees come with a question about the resurrection. The irony is that they don't actually believe in the resurrection. So they're either attempting to ridicule the whole idea of resurrection, or they're just trying to make Jesus look foolish. Or maybe they're looking for a way to trip Jesus up in his words in front of the people. Have you ever heard the term levirate marriage? It is not something we talk about very often. It is an Old Testament principle that goes all the way back to Deuteronomy chapter 25, verses 5 and 6, which is what these Sadducees are referring to. Deuteronomy 25, 5 and 6 read this way. If brothers are living together and one of them dies without a son, his widow must not marry outside the family. Her husband's brother shall take her and marry her and fulfill the duty of a brother-in-law to her. The first son she bears shall carry on the name of the dead brother, so that his name will not be blotted out from Israel. Okay, so the goal here is to just continue family lines. Family lines and heritage are very important in Moses's time and through the Old Testament. Partially because you're looking for the Messiah to come through very specific lines. So that's why we care about that so much. And so this rule is in place that when I get married, if my wife and I don't have if we have no children, then my brother should come along, same gene pool, and have a child with my wife to carry on the family name. The Sadducees think, well, this is a great deal. So our picture is that there's seven brothers, one bride. Everybody marries her. Nobody has any kids. So when everybody is resurrected, which one of them is going to get to live with her in heaven? Now, I could go off in about 8 different directions with this parable. I will try to stay kind of limited to right here what the text says. But first of all, I would want to ask, if you're brother number 6 or 7, how excited are you to be marrying this black widow who's gonna kill you off without kids?
Yeah, whoa.
It sounds to me she may not.
I would not drink anything that she brought to me without having watched her pour it first. But that's just, me being affected. What Jesus is pointing out here, they want to have this fight about the resurrection. Jesus is, he kind of takes a little bit different take on it. He doesn't dispute that there is a resurrection. he says that you go back to okay, you Sadducees, you're educated men, you know the law, you treasure the law of Moses, you teach it, you apply it, but you clearly have not paid attention to it. Go back to Moses standing on Mount Sinai in front of the burning bush. I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Jacob has been dead for at least 400 years. But God says, I am, not I was, or I used to be. I am. I continue to be the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jesus says he's using present tense. So there is life after death, even 400 years after death. There is life. There is a resurrection. Um, so Sadducees, pay attention to your own book. You're clearly not paying attention. But then he talks about the resurrection and what marriage is for. Jesus teaches that there is no marriage in heaven. He says people will be like the angels. Now, let me just go ahead right now and disabuse you of any ideas that you might have about what Jesus is saying there. Jesus is not saying that we become angels. There are not wings and halos and harps that are given to everybody upon their death entering into heaven. You're not ever going to be an angel. Angels are created beings. You're created a human with an eternal soul. Your eternal soul is going to go to heaven and you're going to get a new body. It will not be the body of an angel. The word angel, angelos, means messenger. The angels of heaven are those who deliver the message of God to his people here. They are clearly, from what Jesus says here, angels don't fall in love. Angels don't get married. There are not angel babies made in heaven. They're created beings. Now, there is neither marriage or giving in marriage in heaven, that we will be like the angels. We will be unmarried, eternal beings. In this world, in this realm, men and women marry to have children, to create support and structure, to build civilization. And in heaven, none of that's going to occur because there's no need for it to occur. There aren't going to be babies born in heaven, so there's no need of sex. If there's no need of sex, then there's no need for marriage. Well, then what is heaven going to be like, James? Am I going to know who my spouse is in heaven? Are we going to live in a mansion forever together? That's not how this sounds like to me. Well, James, don't some of our neighbors believe some very different things about this? Yes. Yes, they do. They believe very different things about families and eternity, which seems to really fly in the face of what Jesus says here. What is heaven going to be like? What are relationships going to be like in heaven? I don't know. And there's really not enough information for us to say for certain. All we can do is sort of speculate about what God has in store for us in heaven. Are we standing around the throne every moment of eternity singing praise to God? Well, that doesn't sound very much like how God envisioned things in the first place. When he created humanity and put them in the garden, they didn't just sit there and sing praises to God. They had things to do. There was creation to explore. So, like I said, I can go off on lots of different related tangents here, pull on lots of different threads. Um, but I think we do learn a little bit about the importance of marriage on this earth and the lack of marriage in heaven. Sadducees, don't do this. You can say that, you want to answer this question, but you don't understand the way it works. There isn't marriage in heaven. What we did on earth in that way was meaningful, but it's not forever. So this is a silly question. I'm not going to answer it. They've raised their biggest question, the Sadducees. There is no resurrection. That is the biggest plank in their platform. There is no resurrection. Jesus sees that they've ignored scripture. He points it out to them. Even in the Old Testament, it says, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There is life after death. He teaches them a little bit about the fact that there isn't marriage in heaven. And the people who are there to listen respond well to the answer. It's like, wow, thanks for pointing that out. I hadn't thought about that. They can't find anything wrong with the answer. Matthew says that the listeners are astonished. The Greek word that Matthew uses has a physical blow as a root of it. To hit something, to punch something, to strike it, knock it down. So essentially, the people are blown away. They're knocked out by the answer that Jesus gives. Like what? How you gonna argue with that? You just can't. He's wise and fast, and he speaks the truth. Any questions or comments about any of that? Yes.
Talked about, we get new bodies.
Yes.
Because when we die, our physical body stays in the ground, but our soul goes up. So the soul moves a new body.
Hey, I don't know, because Paul says at the end of 1 Corinthians that the perishable is raised imperishable.
What does that mean?
You don't get the same body back.
What that this physical body, I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but it tends to wear out. It's not nearly as vibrant and vital as it was 30 or 50 or 100 years ago. Things quit working. And eventually, if we die out on the prairie someplace, eventually there'll be no trace that our bodies ever existed. Or we get eaten by a shark or burned up in a fire or, whatever. These physical bodies are going to go away. But Paul teaches that the corruptible body, the perishable body, is raised incorruptible and imperishable. Does that mean my body, all of my molecules are going to be, reassembled in some sort of cool new eternal way? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know how it works. Is it like in the Avengers when they snap and all of the dusty people come back to? I don't know. I really don't know. What I do know is that how I exist in this world, in this realm, in this existence now is nothing compared to what it'll be like in the life to come. How old are we going to be? What will our bodies be like? I don't know. Are we all going to be 6 feet tall and blonde and beautiful? No. Maybe we'll be short and round and curly headed. I don't know. I have no idea. And if anybody tells you otherwise, they're making stuff up, because it's really Not there. All we know is that that we will have a new eternal existence. And it's gonna be not like we understand things now. And I'm not sure we could even think about it with these brains. His ways are not our ways. His thoughts are bigger than our thoughts. So
It's not like the Garden of Eden, where we're gonna be running around naked. Right?
why?
Okay.
Why?
Why, what? Oh, that's right, they didn't notice. did
There
they?
won't be any sin. There won't be any temptation to sin. So it won't really matter. I do know that if you look through the book of Revelation, that there is sort of a heavenly dress code, and it's white. That everything that anybody wears in heaven is white. Because it's pure. There is no stain, there's no dirt, there's no blemish. Jesus is all in white, God is all in white, the robes of the people are all in white. Brilliant. Is it really white, like, white, paper white, or is it really blinding white, brilliant light? I don't know.
But whatever it is, she'll be happy.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll be so glad to not have to put on socks and shoes and a belt. I mean, just think about what it's like when you come home after church and you've been dressed up in an uncomfortable clothes all day, and you get to throw on your slouching around clothes that nothing is tight and everything feels good. Be like that forever. Nothing pinchy, nothing tight. Great. Okay. Knocked down, blown away by the teaching of Jesus. The Pharisees had a turn, then the Sadducees took a turn, and now the next thing that follows is another challenge from the Pharisees. Matthew 22, Mark 12. There is a conversation like it in Luke 10, which is sort of out of the chronology that we've been following. But Matthew and Mark are pretty close. So the Sadducees came at Jesus with their favorite pet project, resurrection. The Pharisees come at Jesus with one of their favorite topics, which is the law. Matthew 22, verse 34 says, hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question, teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. So the Pharisees are still looking for a way to catch Jesus. They decide they're going to go with the law. Okay, we know the law, we love the law, we live by the law. Let's go with that. So an expert comes and asks the question, and this is not just like a sort of a conversational. Oh, and by the way, Jesus, I believe this is more like the grilling that you see in a courtroom drama. This is a cross-examination. Tell me what the right answer is. Which is the first and greatest commandment? Which is the one commandment that we should follow? What's the greatest one in all of the law? Because I know the right answer. Let's see if you do, Jack. And so Jesus has an answer pretty quickly. And we've heard this answer so very many times. We know it well. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. That is a direct quote from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5. It is a part of the Shema of Israel, then we get the calling of people together. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with our heart, soul, mind, strength. Um, the Israelites have known that since the time of Moses. Um, that is the paramount command. And Jesus throws in an extra one for free. Love your neighbor as yourself. That is also directly from the time of Moses. That is Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18. When Moses gives it, it is to be applied to fellow Jews, Israelites, Hebrews at that point. Don't treat your fellow Hebrews, don't treat your fellow Israelites badly, treat them very well. But when Jesus comes around to it, it's not just about Jews treat Jews well. This is, if you're following God, you need to love everybody. If you see anyone who has a need, you treat them the way that you would like to be treated. Now, these two commands exist together. John will go on to talk about that in 1 John chapter 4. He says that we can't love God, who is invisible, intangible. How could we think that we can love God if we won't love the flesh and blood people who are right here with us? If you won't love your own brother and sister who are sitting at the table next to you, how do you think you're ever going to love somebody who is so much better than you and so much higher than you? I mean, you got a lot in common with these people. Same parents, same community, same neighborhood, same whatever. You have to love them if you think you're ever going to love God. That's 1 John 4:20. We can't love God if we won't love our neighbor. But the verse before that, 1 John 4:19 says, we can't love anybody else without experiencing God's love first. He loved us first. So we wouldn't even know what real love looked like had it not been for him. Paul says the same thing in like Romans 5:8. God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. What is love? Well, it's laying down your life for somebody else. Now, he says that all of the law and the prophets, every command that's given in Scripture boils down to one of these two chief principles. Especially when you think about the big 10 that God gave to Moses on the mountain. In the 10 commandments, the first 4 deal with our relationship to God, and the remaining 6 have to do with our relationship with other people. Okay, the first 4 are, I won't make you write them out. This isn't a quiz, because I would probably get like 7 for sure, probably 8. 10 might trick me a little bit. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall make no idols. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, and keep the Sabbath day holy. Those all have to do with our relationship to God. We put him first. He is the most important. He is paramount. He is the priority. But then the last 6 have to do with everybody else. Honor your father and mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, and you shall not covet. Okay? Now think about those 10 in view of love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. If I'm going to love my neighbor as myself, I'm not going to try to steal his wife or his stuff. I won't kill him if I'm loving him as myself. I won't lie about them if I'm loving them the way that I love myself. Well, if I'm treating them the way I'd like to be treated. I don't want people to lie about me, so I'm not going to lie about them.
Those two hands cover all 10.
Those two cover all 10. It seems maybe simpler, but we're always looking for examples. Okay, love God with everything that you are, because that's really what heart, soul, mind, and strength means. I mean, trying to narrowly define what a soul or a mind or a heart or your strength is, then they all overlap. It's really the totality of who you are. You need to love God with everything that you are. Well, how do I do that? Well, you would not use his name like it's a throwaway word. You would honor his day. You would honor his creation. You would honor his name. You would worship him. Okay, I'm going to love my neighbor as myself. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means you're not going to kill him to steal his wife or his truck or his donkey or his house or anything else. You're not going to treat somebody badly. That's what loving your neighbor as yourself means. And then you can go deep in the weeds in the rest of the Old Testament, where there's all the rules about how sacrifices are to be made, and all the rules about who you can marry and not marry, and how you pay somebody back for an injury and all that kind of stuff. Just go back to those two foundational stones. Love God with all you are. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Love your neighbor as yourself. Don't make it so complicated, Pharisees. Anything I missed there? No. What do you think?
I looked up, I asked Google how many laws there were, and traditionally 613 laws. So they're asking them, out of the 613, roughly, what's the greatest?
Do not trim the edges of your beard. Do not cook a goat in its mother's milk.
That's Google.
That Google knows a few things. I suppose that is the tendency that we all have. Whether we're kids or employees. So there's all these things that I'm supposed to do. What do you really want me to do? What's the main thing? What do I really need to do to get you off my back and make sure you're happy? I suppose that's our tendency. What's the one thing I really have to do? You give me 10 chores, Dad. Which one do you really hope gets done? All of them. All of them. Honor your father and mother. How about that one? Obey them. So, Jesus has done a lot of teaching. He's not done quite yet. When we get together next time, we'll see a little bit more of the teaching that he throws out to the people and to the Jewish leadership. But I hope you can hear the clock ticking in the background. It's getting short for Jesus. And I think that as the time gets shorter, the intensity just ratchets up higher and higher. Now, having said that, I probably don't need to record this part for posterity, so I'll just make a little departure here. So if you happen to be watching on YouTube, feel free to make a comment. Is there anything you agree with, disagree with? Do you like the color of my shirt? Should I trim my mustache? Just let me know you're there. I'd appreciate it. And as always, feel free to like and subscribe, so you know what's going on.